Hi friends, you're watching Zealous Tribe Podcast with host Zoe Kiana Collins. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to our channel for more inspiring teachings. Also, like this video, leave us a comment, and share it with a friend so that we can reach out and encourage others. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at Zealous Tribe, and don't forget, you can join us anytime you want live on these calls, Tuesday at 9 p.m. Dubai time and 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Just click the link in any of the bios on our social media platform. Let's begin. All right, so we're talking about friendships that last with my mom. So, sorry about that. Anyway, she is such a great person to have friends. She has friends that she's had for years and years. My grandma actually has friends that she's had since she was like in grade school. My mom has friends since like way back then as well. Kindergarten, right? Gayleen is one of your friends from kindergarten. Mm-hmm. Anyway, and she has best friends from college and stuff like that. So when I think of someone who's like a good example of friendships that last and that go the distance, my mom is definitely one of those. So thankful to have you on here, Mom. Thank you so much for all your wisdom that you've given me over the years as a kid and a teenager and an adult. In all of the seasons of my life, I have had seasons where I've cried about wanting better friendships, or you know what I mean. It's just life. So we get better and better. But I'm so glad that you're here. Proverbs 17:17. It says, "A friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for a time of adversity." So can you tell us about maybe your relationship with your best friend, and then how has having lasting friendships impacted your life? What would you say to that?
Yeah, so one of my very, very best friends, her and I met actually in Bible college when we were, I guess 21 years old. And, we both felt like called to the ministry. So we both went to, Bible school to get trained. So we met, and we were kind of like on the same trajectory, in our life of wanting to do, great things, for the Lord and for the kingdom. And, we were created to have relationship, to have fellowship. God created us to enjoy each other and be together and do life together. And there's so many different seasons, in our lives. There's been so many different seasons in my life. And man, I am so thankful for my, my best friends that have been there with me through so many of the different seasons in my life. And it's just so wonderful because, something that God created us for, that fellowship and that intimacy and that vulnerability, and that being like, us being able to be real and raw and who we really are, with somebody. That's how God created us. Mm-hmm. But I think because of maybe insecurities or jealousy or, not feeling good enough, or maybe rejection in our life, these are things that keep us from getting close to people. In the world, we see, that, women just, going after each other, always comparing, attacking. But, that's the enemy. But the Lord's plan has always been for us to, do life together, and have intimacy and fellowship and just like this beautiful, amazing love for each other, and to do life, together. So having close friends, has just completely, made my life so amazing and so wonderful.
Yeah. Oh, I love that so much. It's so true. It really does matter. And like you're saying, that is God's plan for us. It's his dream for us. And like sometimes we think like it doesn't really matter, but then like since it's God's plan and dream for us, it's like, where's the enemy going to attack? Right there. He doesn't want you to have that, because that is God's like desire for us. And he's like, he knows that our lives will be so much more fruitful in that. There's a story with you and Auntie Christy that I want to know if you wanted to share, because I love it so much, and it's so practical, like for everybody on here, I think, because sometimes we think, oh, friendships just happen, and some people are just like, they're lucky and they just have a great friendship, but really like both people have to put into the relationship if it's ever going to be good. So what's that? Can you tell the story that we were talking about earlier with Auntie Christy?
Yes. Okay. So I think too, like all of us in Dubai, we probably all realized the intentionality of staying connected, you know what I mean, and staying friends, because, you know, Dubai it's so small, but it's so big at the same time. You know what I mean? Like, I live in the marina, Mary lives in China, and I'm just kidding. You know what I mean? Deidre's all, you know, way out there. You know what I mean? So it does take intentionality, but, you know, with one of my close friends, Christy, so her and I, you know, we met in Bible college, and, you know, became very close. And so after we graduated, you know, you get married. Like, I got married, and then she got married a couple of years after that. Gosh, I can't even see you guys without these on. A couple of years after that, and then, you know, you've got, you know, life and bills, and, you know, she's in one state, I'm living in a different state. And so, you know, from early on, you know, we both decided, hey, I mean, I remember us having conversations and saying, we really got to stay connected. Like, how can we do it? And, you know, we'd come up with different game plans, because, you know, her husband, you know, they were both working, we were working, we were in college full time. And so we started coming up with plans and different things to stay in contact, and, you know, to stay and it wasn't like, you know, today, where, you know, you can have free calls and different things like that. It wasn't like that back then. Remember, Deidre? It used to not be free, right? And so anyway, I remember, you know, there'd be many times where she would call me and I would call her. But this one particular time that I think Zoe's talking about is, she had called, I think this is when I was living in Hawaii. She had called, like, gosh, probably 5 or 6 times. And in my mind, I was thinking, I don't want to call her back, because when I do call her, I want to have like a span of 2 hours to be able to just sit and talk and fellowship and connect. So in my mind, this is what I'm thinking. So here she is on the other side. You know, she's in I think she was in Colorado at the time. So she's thinking, why isn't Danny picking up? You know, I've called 5 or 6 times. She's not returning my calls. So like the 7th time she called, it was like, you know, maybe like a week later. So like literally she had been trying to call me, and like 7 or 8 days had gone by. Because I kept thinking, you know, I'm busy, I'm working full time, going to school. And I kept thinking, when I have time, when I have this block of time, I'm going to call her. So anyway, I get this message from her, and she was just like, Danielle, I've been trying to call you. I've called you, I think, 7 times. You haven't returned my phone call 1 time. And she's like, I am reaching out to you. I am trying to stay connected, and I feel like you're ignoring me. Like my calls don't matter. You know what I mean? And so I'm listening to this message, and I just start crying, because I'm like, oh my gosh, no, I'm not ignoring you. I just want to wait to call you back until I have time to, you know, talk to you. So anyway, I called her right then, and you know what I mean? I was just like in tears, and I was like, Christy, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. Please don't think that I'm ignoring your calls. And then I explained to her, you know what I mean, why I hadn't called her. And so anyway, we had to talk about, like, she's like, I don't care, even if you just call me right back, or call me sometime that day and just say, hey, I don't have time to talk, but, you know, I love you, you know, and even if we can talk like for 5 minutes, that's fine. I just want to connect with you more than once a month, more than once every couple months, you know. So it definitely does take work and intentionality to stay connected. But I'm so glad that she confronted me, and that she loved me enough to say, hey, what are you doing? You know, I'm calling you. You're not calling me back. It's hurting my feelings. I want to stay connected to you. I love you. You know, so I'm so glad that she, you know, reached out and, you know, was able to be truthful with me. And actually, if you think about it, it really took her being vulnerable to get on the phone and say that to me. Hey, you know, why aren't you calling back? You know, I feel like I'm reaching out and you're ignoring me. You know, so I'm just so thankful, you know what I mean, that she cared enough to keep calling, and that we've stayed connected, because it's been such a blessing. It's been so much joy and so much fun and laughter, you know, being close with somebody like that all these years.
Yeah, that's so wonderful. And I know you guys also sort of eventually through that made like a pact that like you'll go see each other like once a year or whatever, and you switched off. And,
So that's what we did. We made a plan that we take turns every year going to see each other. And we've done that for, oh my gosh, yeah, it's been like 30 years.
Yeah, it's so good. So awesome. I love it. Let me read this first. Ecclesiastes 4, 9 through 10. It says that two are better than one because they have a good reward for their labor. For if they fall, one lifts up his companions. But woe to him who's alone when he falls, because he has nobody to help him up. So it's sort of like, I mean, you could have like went down a whole trail, maybe it wasn't that dramatic, but you could have gone down a whole trail of like not really being that close to anybody if that was like your habit and your trend of just sort of like isolating yourself and being like, oh, not necessarily isolating yourself, but like believing like, oh, later. And sometimes we don't mean to like be isolated, but we do just want to like, oh, I'll do it later, or I'll do it later. And then we don't realize that later becomes a month becomes 3 months, 3 months becomes a year or whatever, you know what I mean? And yeah, like you don't necessarily have to like be in person hanging out, but like, yeah, like, cause you know, we all live in different places and stuff. I mean, if you're in Dubai and you're both in Dubai, you should find a time to meet up in a year. I mean, that's just, you just got to make it happen and both make some sacrifices. But if you're in different countries or whatever, but why do you think isolation is so harmful? And that like, I want to talk about that. And why is it like such a tactic that the enemy loves to use in us, you know? And like, yeah, I think that one of the reasons, I'll just comment as you're, you know, I think one of the reasons isolation is so harmful is because sometimes we get in our heads too much about stuff and we become, you know, Pastor Joe, he talks about like a stagnant body of water. If there's no movement in a body of water, stuff starts to grow and it gets nasty and there's mosquitoes, you know what I mean? And it gets murky and yucky. So what would you say, like, why is isolation so harmful to us?
Yeah, well, I think, one thing we say on our dream team is at City of Dreams is, life is better together. You know what I mean? And it's like, that's how we were created. You know what I mean? But when you're, oh gosh, I think everybody responds to like pain and disappointment and discouragement differently. So for me, it's like, when something happens that's, that's pretty challenging or hurtful or hard, you know what I mean? Like my first reaction is to withdraw and isolate. I don't know about you guys, like I really have to fight against that. And it's really scary when you're in that spot because it's almost like you have tunnel vision and all you can see is like your issue, your problem, your pain. And that's all real. Your issue is real. Your circumstance, your situation, your feelings, they're all very real. And, but it gets scary when you have like tunnel vision and that's all you see. And I wrote this down. I thought this was interesting. So when you isolate, I was thinking, okay, what does that look like? Like for me, like I was looking back at like different seasons in my life where I withdrew and isolated. And I'm like, really, it's like you're disconnecting. You know what I mean? So it's like when you're connected, you know what I mean? With all of us ladies on our life groups or, your prayer group at church or your best friends, when you're connected to life. You're connected to wisdom and encouragement. You're connected to a different point of view, which I think is so important. Like when you have tunnel vision, like I can't tell you how many times, I've talked to like my best friends and I've told them the situation and the circumstance. And I have been so amazed and so blessed, to get their perspective and their take. And to see things from a different point of view. So, with isolation, you become disconnected and it's like the perfect storm, the perfect, scenario for the enemy to come and feed you lies, you know what I mean? And tell you things that aren't true.
That's so good.
He gets you to magnify the issue, magnify the problem. I don't know about you guys, but, I think like as women, like, I mean, I'm telling you guys, seriously, like I can magnify something like 20 times. You know what I mean? Like, boom, boom, boom. You know what I mean? And then it's like, when I get connected or make that call to my best friend or my mentor, you know what I mean? And just like hear like some words of wisdom, a different point of view. I'm just like, it's like the heavens have parted. You know what I mean? Like I can see the birds are singing. You know what I mean? There's hope. There's wisdom. You know what I mean? But this is the example I gave. So I thought this was good, you guys. So I said, where is it? Okay. So for an example, like think of a plumber. So think of a plumber that disconnects the hose from the faucet, right? So now, like if the hose and the faucet are disconnected, there's no flow. You know what I mean? There's no flow. And then I was watching a reel the other day, and I can't remember what dam it was, but it was like this huge water dam, and they said it had been shut off for like 30 years. Like it had been disconnected and shut off. Like the flow of water hadn't flowed for like 35 years. So anyway, they opened it up, and like for the first 5 minutes, like Zoe was talking about, all this guck and grime and yucky stuff was all pouring out because it had been disconnected. So it had been sitting there, and mosquitoes had gathered, like all kinds of yucky stuff and grime and grit and yuck had gathered, because it was disconnected. So that's kind of how we are when we isolate. We become disconnected from life, from wisdom, from direction, from a different point of view. So it's really important to practice when you feel like you want to isolate because of pain and disappointment and hurt. When you feel that way, do you know that you can feel that way and not act on it? Like you can feel like I want to isolate. I want to be alone. I just want to go home, shut the door, get a cheeseburger and watch Netflix. You know what I'm saying? But do you know, like you can feel that way and then you can actually do the complete opposite?
Yeah. It's so good. I remember you've always told me, like, whenever you, like, feel like not going to church, it's, like, the time that you really need to go the most.
Yes.
When you need it.
Yes.
Like, when you feel like not joining life here, but that's probably the time it's like, okay, you really need to, and the enemy's trying to, like, really get you to not do that. But it's so good what you're saying. It's, like, it's dangerous to be isolated. Because, I mean, just in the natural, like, we're referred to in the Bible as, like, sheep, right? And God's, like, our shepherd and stuff, right? But what happens when the sheep's off on their own? They're the easy target to predators. Like, that's exactly where the wolf or the predator, or whoever it is, it's going to go right away for that sheep. And we're the sheep, and it's like, he is our shepherd. But there's also a herd that we're meant to be a part of. Like, you got to find your tribe. So you got to be in the herd. You got to be in the tribe. So, when the enemy starts planting the wrong thoughts, when we're not with the herd, we're not following the shepherd which is where the herd is. You know what I mean? It's like, it's almost like he puts like little weeds in the ground, but the shepherd's leading us to like the good grass, the grass that's tasty, the grass that's healthy for us. But then we're off on our own and we find like these little weeds and then we start nibbling on them. But we don't have the sheep around us to be like, hey, don't eat that one. That one's not good. That one's poisonous. That's going to poison your life. It's going to hurt your relationship. It's going to hurt your family. You know what I mean? It's not good. Don't go there, And I think even sometimes, sometimes we can be like, Lord, where's the river? Like, where's the greener? And he's like, it's right here. I've been leading my herd beside the green pastures. I've been leading my herd beside the still waters, and we feel like we're in the rapids and we're in the waves, but it's like God's right there and he's like, no, I'm not leading you there. If you just come where I'm leading you, it's like, this is a good place, you know what I mean? But when we get off, we're not in the flow, like you said, with everybody else, and it's like, it's not fun. I think sometimes of a lazy river or whatever, if you've ever been to a water park and there's a lazy river and you're sitting in there, you know what I mean? And everybody's like on the same flow all around the entire thing, and you can go and get off at the same spots if you want to. Like, you can get off at this water slide or that water slide, but you got to be in the loop, right? You got to be in the flow if you want to be a part of those fun adventures that are on the way in the river. And so we want to be connected, most definitely, but it's very, very good. Very good what you're saying. I think another thing that I would add on to that is, it's like, we talk about like in with that analogy and like God being our shepherd and leaving us, and we have the whole analogy of like he leaves the 99 and he comes after the one, and like in ourselves sometimes we think like, oh, I'm the one and he's the 99, he's chasing us all the time. But like just imagining in like a regular relationship, or like a relationship with my husband, like me and Jonathan, like imagine if I wanted him to chase me all of the time. Like that isn't love, you know? Like love goes both ways. And even if our relationship with the Lord is similar to a relationship with a friend, right? He calls us friend. And so you can see it in both ways, but like we have to go after the Lord as well, because we love him and we enjoy our time with him. And really the analogy of the 99, leaving the 99 for the one, is what we're supposed to do for other people. And we're supposed to go out and find the one, and go out and find our friend that's not a part of the herd, and bring them back. And I think what's been so damaging sometimes in just the culture nowadays in this next generation is like whenever somebody's off, instead of someone going after them, leaving the 99 and being like, hey, come back to the herd, we don't want to offend them. So we say like, it's okay, stay as the one, stay, do your thing, eat what you want to eat, go to the water you want to go to, instead of being like, yo, there's a shepherd right here and life is way better. And we have to kind of rise up in our confidence as friends and know like, hey, isolation is bad. So if we want to be like, have relationships that last, it's one of the things is you got to protect your friends, and you got to love your friends, and you got to go after your friends, and you want friends that are going to do the same thing for you. But even if you don't have friends yet that are doing that for you necessarily, I mean, we're here. So we're saying like, hey, don't isolate. So you've got us, you know, you've got us being like, hey, be a part of the herd, right? But we got to do that for other people and be like, don't go over there. That's not good. We can't have the mentality of like, just do you, do your thing. It's okay. That's good too. Because it's like, no, there's a way that seems right, but in the end, it's destruction, and we don't want destruction for people. And that's part of friendships that last, right? Like Auntie Christy was like, hey, I want like this relationship. Like, let's be close. Let's be together. Let's, you know, and so that's really good. But okay, back to the topic. You know, we need good word knowing, lasting friends, because it's safe there. They'll tell us when we're off, like you said. They'll tell us when we're sniffing a weed, and like they'll say don't eat it, or hopefully not this, but if you're like doing actual weed, they'll be like don't smoke it. You know what I mean? don't go for the weed. They'll tell us about the weeds. But yeah, Jesus, all throughout the Bible, you see Jesus loves to lead in groups. You see that with his disciples. You know what I mean? There's times where he talked to them one-on-one or talked to them in smaller groups, but he does love to lead in groups. I think that's just such a great atmosphere for learning, for togetherness, for joy, you know. Even God, like in the Trinity, they're 3 in 1, and we're made in his image. So if God, the God of the universe, doesn't want to do life alone, and even for himself, he thinks like, hey, I'm going to be unified with like Jesus and the Holy Spirit, right? Why do we think that we can do it alone, or that we should do it alone? And we shouldn't, right? Yeah. But I'll read one verse and then ask you another question, or two verses. Psalms 92:13 says, they that are planted in the Lord's own house, they flourish in the courts of our God. So, like, where are they planted? In the Lord's own house. Where do they flourish? In the courts of God. So we flourish as we're planted, as we're together. So
Amen.
1 Corinthians 15:33 says, do not be deceived, because bad company corrupts good character. So let me ask you this. Can we be friends with non-believers without compromising our faith? We talked about dating unbelievers a little bit earlier, kind of impromptu, and we know that that's not the case because you don't want to be in that covenant like with somebody. But what about being friends with unbelievers, and how can we do that without compromising our faith? What would you say to that?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, because, you know, the Bible tells us to be salt and to be light, you know what I mean, in a world that is so full of darkness. But, you know, a few of us, you know, Deidre, I'm sure she can say, you know, we've been around for a while, so we've seen, you know, like through the years, just some really crazy stuff, you know what I mean? Like people, you know, going into believers going into places, you know, maybe probably wouldn't be the best for them to go into. But the Bible says in Proverbs 12:26, it says, choose your friends carefully, for the way of the wicked leads them astray. So I think it's really, you know, we just have to be really careful. We can still be friends with, I mean, we do want to be friends with non-believers. But I think the big C word, compromise, you know what I mean, is huge. So it's like, when when you're living for the Lord, with all your heart, with all your soul, with all of your might, and then you have friends that aren't believers, you just have to make sure you do a couple things. And these are just a few things that I wrote down. Ask yourself honestly, do I tend to compromise my faith, my values when I'm around these people? You know what I mean? So I think, being honest with yourself, like, because, you might have some struggles. I remember when I, first, I was born again for a while, but, I just like to go to certain places. Like, I like to go dancing, I used to like to go and do that. And so it's like, I had to be honest with myself, you know what I mean? Like, about certain things, because I wanted to, be more serious with the Lord. I wanted to go deeper. I wanted to walk out, to where I couldn't touch anymore. I wanted to go further and farther with the Lord. And when we do that, we just have to be honest with ourselves. And, can we handle it? You know what I mean? So I guess it just depends on what stage of, where you're at in your walk with the Lord. But ask yourself, be honest with yourself, do I, is compromise something that's challenging? And then I put here, strengthen your foundation, you know what I mean? So your time in prayer and scripture and worship, because I'm thinking of...
That will help you know if you're compromising or not, right?
Yeah. And then, because the stronger you walk with the Lord, the harder it is for others to pull you off your course.
That's so good. Then, I think I'll just add there, I think that too, the word friend sort of has underneath it like so many different things. Like, friend can mean a lot of different things. So it's like, are they like your... what is it? Is it Little House on the Prairie? They refer to someone as like a bosom friend, or no? I think it's Anne of Green Gables. She has a bosom friend. So are they like your bosom friend? Like you can have friends. Of course, we're supposed to be friends with people who are not believers, and you know what I mean. But it doesn't have to compromise our faith, right? Because you said like go into all the world, not stay in your little Christian bubble where it's safe and no one's ever going to disagree with you, right? But when it comes to friends, it's like it comes to like, are you the influencer, or are they influencing you? And you need friends that do influence you, but that influence has to be a good influence. Like, obviously you influence me, and I have like I have other good friends that are influencing me, and it's just differentiating between the type of friend that they are. Like, you have friends that like are above you, that are speaking into your life. You have friends that are like sort of on your level and you're growing at the same pace, like siblings, sisters. Like Max and I we're like friends on the same level, do you know what I mean? And then you have friends that are like, I don't want to say below you, but friends that you're helping to lift them, helping to encourage them, helping to influence them, and that you're like, okay, I can't be influenced by them, And then like, if somehow it starts to become where like you're liking what they're doing or they're influencing you, then it's like, okay, not like break up the friendship. You don't want to burn a bridge, but it is like, you got to be aware of like, okay, I need to step back from this person, not forever, but just stepping back from that person until you've become strong again, and just like, and you can be the influencer again, you know what I mean? And hanging out with people who are, because sometimes we've been walking with the Lord and we're like very strong in our faith, and then there's moments where we might be like a little bit like tending to want to do something like go dancing or whatever, like you were saying, right? So when we're strong and we know like this is what we're doing, it's easier to be friends with unbelievers and to be closer to them almost. But then there is just seasons where a lot of times, like Dad talks about, you got to disassociate, you got to cut them off, and you can maybe come back to them in a while from now. But like, if you go back to those friends and they're like still like, oh no, I don't want anything to do with that stuff, you just have to be careful in your walk with the Lord, you know what I mean? So yeah, I would say that like your friends, if they're your friends that you're going to share stuff with, that you're going to be vulnerable with, you definitely want them to be someone who, like, if it's a friend that you're going to be vulnerable with and share things with, and they're potentially going to give you advice or input into your life, you want that to be a friend that is a believer, that's firm in the Word of God, because otherwise the advice that they give you could take you downhill fast, So that's something I would say.
Yeah. No, that's good. I remember, when Pastor Joe and I, when he was a chaplain in the military, the guys would be gone for, months at a time. So, you have just all of the ladies on the base, you know what I mean? So even the different chaplains' wives, you know what I mean? Like, we're always wanting to call and get together and all go do things. And so, one of the things they always wanted to go do was, like one of the things they wanted to go do was go to bars and go out drinking. You know what I mean? So so that was one of my things, on here. It's like, like even though they were believers, because there are believers, you know what I mean, that think that's okay to do certain things, and you don't want to anyways. And so it's good to have boundaries. You don't want to cut them off, but you want to limit like where you go, or have a boundary, or like, oh, okay, you know what, I'm not going to be able to make the cowboy club tonight, but maybe next week you guys can all come over, and I'll make dinner.
That's so good too. And part of being salt and light is like you never want to do it in a way that's going to offend somebody, especially if they're not a believer. Like you don't want to be like, no, I am so sanctified and holy, I shall never hang out with you. Like it's not like that. It's just guarding your own heart. And I think I do want to say real quickly, sometimes people do have the thought of like, oh, I'm strong, I can go to the bar and it won't affect me. Okay, no, that's dangerous territory. You don't want to do that. I know people personally that have been like, oh, I'm just going to do that, or I like to watch the sports at the bar. And then they literally get involved with some guy or or the wrong group, and then they're posting all these things on social media, and they spiral because they went to the wrong place. So we want to, go to the right place, go where the herd's at, go where we know that Jesus is leading people, where people are firm in the Lord. But yeah, I think that in that, I forgot what I was going to say, but
yeah, I had one more thing that I thought was really important too, with being friends with non-believers. I just think this is like one of the hugest ways you can just be such light and such salt, and it's humility. Max and I were just talking about that the other night. And he was talking about how, when he got born again and moved back, he so wanted his friends to come to the Lord and be born again. And so him and Ruhan and a couple of his other friends, they all lived together when he first moved back. And he said, he's like, Mom, I knew that it was so important, you know what I mean, that I was an example, that I was light and salt. And he goes, it would be so hard sometimes because I just wanted to lash out, or, they would do something that would just, be so annoying, and I'd want to be angry. He goes, but I just, kept being humble. And even if they asked me questions and I didn't know the answer, I'd say, I don't know, but we can find out together, or I'm not sure about that. But two of his close friends that came to the Lord, they said that was a huge factor in seeing Jesus, is Max's humility and his ability to say sorry, even when it wasn't his fault. You know what I mean? So I think that is so huge, you guys. Humility is such a huge factor in, being friends with non-believers, and being willing to, apologize even when you didn't do anything, or even when it wasn't your fault, because you're driven by eternity. You're driven by, you know what I mean, the eternal rewards of being light and being salt, and whatever it takes, even if it's humbling myself, and saying I'm sorry, you know what I mean? I'm willing to do whatever, because I want them to come to know and encounter Jesus.
Yeah, and caring more about the relationship. I think that in a sense of just talking sort of about evangelizing almost is something that I sort of was thinking about. I think that I've almost fallen trap before and being like wanting people to like know God so much that you all can almost like push them away because you like want to see results, because you love your life with the Lord so much, you know what I mean? And you're like, this is the best life, and you're like, how can you not see it? But yeah, just knowing that it takes time. And I think part of that is just knowing, like, in friendships and in life, you have to have the attitude of like, I'm in this for the long run. Like, I'm gonna run beside you forever, instead of like almost sometimes we can protect ourselves or whatever and feel like I'm just gonna like I'll see, like, like I'll like throw a little, like Jesus is like, grab the net and get the fish, and then we're just like, we'll fish in the pond a little bit. If they don't bite, then we'll go home. You know what I mean? But it's
Yeah.
like, no, we want to go all in and walk with them forever and like continue to like press into that relationship with them and be like, I'm still going to reach out to you even if you don't reach out to me. You know what I mean? And even, yeah, that's another thing is I've thought that in the past or whatever, like people don't reach out to me. I'm always the first one to text. Keep being the first one to text. You know what I mean? That's part of being salt, being light, like you said, and just loving people to life. And I think that sometimes when we think about friendships that last, at least me, I've fallen into the trap before of thinking like, oh, I wish I had a good friend, or I wish I had a like best friend like my mom. But it's like you can make just about like so many people are out there that can become your best friend. It's just a matter of investing in them. So the last question that I want to ask you tonight is, what advice would you give to someone who wants to find good friends? I think it's something a lot of people want, right? We want good friends. We want to be close. We want to be besties, you know? But how can we find good friends, you know? And what would you say to that?
Yeah, I would say, you know, because we all long for that, you know, to be close to people. But there is, you know, you do have to be vulnerable. You know what I mean? And you do have to step out. And you do have to be willing to come out of your comfort zone. And two, I think, you know, for me, I don't know about, you know, you guys, but I know for me, just experiencing like rejection, you know what I mean? Of like certain people, like maybe you've allowed, you know, I know for me, I've allowed, you know, different people to get close to me, and I've allowed people to get to know me in a more intimate way, and they didn't approve of me. They didn't like what they saw. They wanted something different, something better, something more spiritual, something, you know what I mean? And of course, all of those things hurt, you know? So I just want to encourage you guys you know, in the middle of all of that, just push through that. You know what I mean? People need you. They need connection. People need that closeness with you. And so I just want to encourage you, don't let offense or bitterness or hurt or rejection from past relationships affect your relationships in the future, because there's so many beautiful relationships, you know, that we still haven't even made yet. You know, maybe a lot of us even on this call, you know, we need to be closer and you know, and then another thing, Zoe, I'd say, you know, be available. Don't rush out of church so quickly. Maybe come to church a little bit early. You know, be available. That's what I would say.
Very good. Yeah.
You know?
I was thinking about that too, about what it is to find good friends and stuff. I think that's been sort of like a journey almost for me, until I really realized like, wait, I do have good friends. You know what I mean? Like I was like, wait, there's tons of people around me that are really good friends. But I would think number one, it's like you got to be a good friend to find good friends, right? The Bible says like if you want friends, you got to be friendly. And then I think you got to get out there is the second thing. You're not going to find friends like, you know, sitting at home, never showing your face. You have to meet people to be friends. And the third thing I would say is you have to accept the invite. Like I know so many people
good.
Yeah, they tell me that they're lonely or that they need friends, you know what I mean? And then, but they say no to hanging out. They say no to getting together. And you know, it's the same ones that say like, my life's the same every week. I'm feeling down, you know, but we have to accept the invite. I think that's a really big thing. And yeah, I think that it's important. I remember, I'll tell a little story. One time, I was, you know, I've had people that are older than me as my like close friends for like pretty much all of my life. And I don't know if it's being like pastor's kids or whatever, but there was a season when there was like a group of the older people that were like between the ages of like, I don't know, 25 to like 32.
Oh, I remember this. Yeah.
And they were hanging out like regularly on a weekly basis. And I think I was like 16 or 17, right? So it's like, yeah, it's easy to like maybe like in my mind we're like all the same, you know what I mean? But then they would like hang out, and it wasn't like, it was because I was just like a kid, probably more in their eyes, you know what I mean? But we were like all doing life together. I was just younger than them. And I remember like they would hang out like after church or whatever often. And one time I was like, I literally was like crying, and I told my dad, I was like, they never invite me, you know what I mean? And I was like, I want to go with them, and they invite me, and they do things without me. And he was like, he told me these two things. Aruna's putting these crying faces. It wasn't you, Aruna. No, I'm just kidding. No, but I was telling him that, you know what I mean? And he was like, he told me two things that I won't forget, that I will never forget, and I think are so good for you guys too. The first thing that he told me is he said, well, you know for sure that it's going to be way more fun with you. So make sure that you always have the mentality of everyone has more fun when I'm there, you know? You gotta have the mentality, everyone has more fun when I'm there, and that will help you to be confident in your relationship because you're gonna be, you know that you're a good friend. And you know, you said that before, Mom. You're like, you're missing out if you don't want to be friends with me because I'm a good friend. So have that mentality of like, it's more fun when I'm there and I'm a good friend. That's how you can find good friends. And the other thing that he said to me is he was like, you know, they probably don't even realize that that's happening. They're not intentionally not inviting you. You know what I mean? And then he asked me this, and it was kind of a funny thing. He was like, do you even want to hang out with them all of the time? And I thought about it, and I was like, not necessarily. Like, there are sometimes that I don't even want to go with them. I just want to stay home. Do you know what I mean? And so I'm not saying that as an excuse to be like, just stay home. But I am saying that, you know, there are people that want to hang out with you. But if you're going to be close to them, you have to accept the invite. And later on in the years, I became closer with them, and we started to hang out more and more, even weekly. And so, anyway, it's just a process. It's a journey. Again, it's like friendship is like a thing that you got to treat like, I'm in it for the long haul. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I put in here, check in, show up, keep your word.
Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, James 1:19, be slow to speak and quick to listen.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's huge, a huge component in being a really, really good friend because, you know, I know, you know, just all of us being women, you know, we can just have all of this stuff on the inside of us. But I'm telling you what, when you call your best friend and cry and tell her all your complaints, you're fine. And then go to bed, you wake up and you're like, I'm good. I'm good. You know what I'm saying?
There is such value in that, for sure.
Yeah, so I think it's so important, you know what I mean, to just be able to listen too. Mm-hmm. That's something I have to work on because when someone tells me their problems or, you know, when close friends of mine are hurting, it's like, you know, you just want to fix it. Yeah. In fact, it's so funny. Just today, one of my, I woke up and, you know, one of my friends is going through a divorce after 27 years of marriage. It's just, you know, and she just left me a few just gut-wrenching voicemails, you know what I mean? Just pouring her heart out. And I was just like, oh, so I'm just trying to think of scriptures and think of things to tell her. And so I'm texting her this and that. And then like 30 minutes later, I just sent her a voicemail and I just said, hey, I just, you know, I just love you so much and I just want to help. I just want to say something, but I want you to know I'm listening. Mm-hmm. Like you can leave me as many messages as you need, you know what I mean? And just vent as much as you need. And I'll just listen because I know that's important, so you know? So I think that's big too.
Very good. Yeah. Just an ending thought that goes along with what you're saying. That reminds me sort of what you were saying, how Max was saying. He was like, I don't know, but we can find out together. That's another thing. Sometimes like you don't have to feel like in terms of finding good friends or being a good friend, you don't have to feel like you have to have the answers to them because you don't have the answers and you can actually mess it up trying to tell them the answers, you know what I mean? But that's so true. Is just being there, being to listen. It's part of being a good friend is just being considerate also. It's important. I don't think many of you guys do this, but I would just say it's very important that in your friendships, you're not the only one talking. You let them talk, you know, and make sure you're not being selfish in your friendships. That's how you are a good friend. That's how you find good friends. Let them talk. Let them speak and just be considerate of them and of their emotions and everything like that. But it's so good. I was going to do a question and answer, but I didn't realize that Google Meets actually has a 1 hour time limit. So it's going to end in just a moment. But let me pray us out. It was so wonderful to have everybody joining on here. You guys are all so wonderful. Let me say hello to Amina and Angie and Aruna and Betsy and Busala and Christine, my mom, Deidre, Dorcas, Esther. Oh, hi, Dorcas. So good to see you. Farah, so glad you're on here. You guys, me and Farah became friends because I saw her name on like an Instagram live. And then I literally was like, that's what I named my doll when I was a kid. And then I texted her and she was like, if I ever had a daughter, I plan to name her Zoe. And we were like, what? So anyway. But Jemarie, hello. Kent Nile, Lali, Mengrong, Mary, Muna, Madreen, good to see you. Aaliyah, Marine, hi Marine. Say hi to your baby Kian for me. Odie, Bright, Rachel, Regina, Irene, Rosette, Shallon, Priscilla, and Doreen. It's so good to see all of you guys on here. I'm so blessed that you joined. I hope that this was encouraging to you. And I actually recorded this, and I want to see if I can post some of it to other people who weren't able to join so that they can be an encouragement to them. But let me pray before we go. We love you guys so much. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this time of fellowship together. I pray that as we're going, that you'll help us to cultivate lasting friendships in our life, that we can be close with each other and enjoy the friendship that you want us to have as sisters in Christ. In Jesus' name, amen. I love you guys so much. Mom, any last things that you want to say before we end?
I love you all, and just so thankful for each and every one of you.
Bye. See you next week. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to our channel for more inspiring teachings. Also, like this video, leave us a comment, and share it with a friend so that we can reach out and encourage others. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at Zealous Tribe. And don't forget, you can join us anytime you want live on these calls, Tuesday at 9 p.m. Dubai time and 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Just click the link in any of the bios on our social media platforms. That's all for today's podcast, Zealous Tribe. We'll see you next week.